Yes, the Oscars were so fun. Quick question. Was I supposed to see that many people's bones? Was that like a part of the night? Was that supposed to be like a new thing? Like how many ligaments and tendons can you see in one person's body at once?
A culture fixated on female thinness is not an obsession about female beauty, but an obsession about female obedience. Dieting is the most potent political sedative in history. A quietly mad population is a tractable one.
You're actually not supposed to be able to see the entire clavicle like that, and the acromion process, which connects the clavicle here on the end. You're not supposed to be able to see that or to feel it being very prominent.
And if you do not have any muscle here and it's sunken in, that is a very big sign of being severely malnourished in a lot of cases, especially it's already to the point of being sunken in, and this is not healthy. They're not snatched. They are not good inspo to use. This is not a sign of being healthy. This isn't a good diet. This isn't balanced. It's malnourishment.
I don't know what they've got against accessorizing with jewelry. It's as if they were using their protruding bones to accessorize instead. But what I wanted to talk about, I've only seen a few creators talk about, is God bless her. I hope she's resting so peacefully. But Catherine O'Hara, at her last public appearance before she passed, she turned up to the Emmys looking so incredibly frail and skinny, and what we now know is she was obviously battling a terminal illness. But no one really batted an eye, because that is how celebrities are turning up to these events, looking so incredibly sick and skinny and fragile.
Scroll any red carpet, award show, or press tour and you'll notice it immediately. Bodies are shrinking dramatically in record numbers. Emma Stone, Lily Collins, Anya Taylor-Joy, Jenna Ortega, Kelly and Sharon Osbourne, Bella Hadid, who has always been thin, now shocking us with an even slimmer silhouette. Well, I guess that's what happens when you're eating pizza at least once a day.
Probably eat pizza at least once a day.
The whole female cast of Wicked, including Ariana Grande, who claimed she's the healthiest she's ever been, Nicole Kidman, Oprah, Lizzo, Demi Moore, the list goes on, truly. Some celebrities now show visible signs of muscle wasting where it wasn't there before: hollow temples, collarbones sharp enough to slice cheese, shoulder blades jutting out, elbows somehow becoming the widest part of their arms. Even stars who spent the last decade preaching self-love, body acceptance, and the radical idea that women shouldn't beat themselves up for not fitting an impossible beauty ideal have now fully embraced the ozempic chic. Well, thinness isn't anything new. It's been in for decades and never really went out of style, to be honest, but the level of thinness being glorified today is something else entirely. Skinny now looks alarming and emaciated, so today I wanted to discuss why so many celebrities seem to want to disappear before our very eyes. We'll trace how we arrived at this exact moment of extreme thinness, why the shift is happening right now during extreme economic instability and wars when millions of people are struggling to afford chicken and eggs. We'll of course discuss the role of GLP-1 drugs in accelerating this trend, and finally talk about what we can do to resist it. Yeah, let's go. Just before we get into it though, a couple of disclaimers. If you don't care about that, feel free to skip ahead. I quickly want to say that I know that this is a really sensitive topic and I've been thinking for a while about how to even approach it, to be honest. I guess y'all can let me know by the end of this video if I did a good job or not. Yeah, it feels like, you know, there's basically no polite way to talk about this. The second you try to point out a broader cultural pattern of women being visibly underweight, the conversation immediately shuts down or gets extremely negative with accusations of body shaming, skinny shaming, or you don't know what they're going through. And to be fair, that part is true. I don't know any of the people I've mentioned or will mention in this video. I have no idea what any individual is dealing with behind closed doors. I don't know their lives, their circumstances, or their medical histories. And also I understand that celebrities are not immune to diet culture, public scrutiny, and unrealistic beauty standards. If anything, they're under even more pressure than the rest of us. Like, I get it. So I want to be very clear, I'm not interested in dissecting or attacking specific women, celebs, or influencers here. I'm more interested in a broader cultural pattern, a trend that is becoming very hard to ignore, to be honest. And I think pretending not to see that and avoiding these conversations out of politeness or fear of saying the wrong thing is actually more harmful in the long run, especially when so many of us have already lived through disorders, body dysmorphia, or unhealthy relationships with exercise or movement. I know I have, so have a lot of you, I'm sure, which we'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, it has one of the highest fatality rates of any mental illness, and it disproportionately affects young women. Being significantly underweight isn't just about appearance, it carries very real physical risks. When the body doesn't get enough energy, it starts breaking itself down to survive. First fat, then muscle, and guess what? Our heart is a muscle. Not to mention that as women get older, maintaining muscle is essential for your health, for bone density, and preventing fractures later in life. So no, this isn't a neutral trend that we're seeing, and it's definitely not something that is not that deep.
People are getting really, really skinny. With Ozempic and Pilates and seeing all of these women who are just skin and bones at the Oscars, I just want to remind everybody that the more muscle mass that you have, the less likely you are to get diabetes, the less likely that you are to get cardiovascular disease, and the lower your all-cause mortality risk. So the risk of you dying from anything is just lower. Especially ladies, as we age, we are more likely to have issues with bone density and bone brittleness, but strength training and putting on muscle can help with that. So just remember, it is not always about being skinny, it is about being healthy.
Yeah, just wanted to put it out there to get ahead of the comments that I know are coming. Second quick disclaimer, I know it's obvious, but for all my bean certification folks out there, this essay is about the pursuit of extreme thinness by otherwise healthy people. It's not about medically necessary weight loss, health conditions, or individual treatment plans, okay? I just hope we're clear on that. Anyways, now let's really get into it. For a minute there, it really felt like we had escaped the glorification of extreme thinness. But though it's very unfortunate, we've really just come full circle. We had and chic in the 90s, which thankfully I didn't personally have to live through, but don't you worry, the 2000s made sure none of us missed a thing. I, for one, grew up watching movies like Devil Wears Prada and Bridget Jones' Diary, where tossing around fatphobic comments about already slender women was just part of the script. Also grew up reading magazines where a new diet was on the front page of every single issue, so I had a crazy amount of insecurities about my appearance and my body, constantly comparing myself to celebrities, their flat stomachs, their extremely low-rise jeans, their thigh gaps, all of it.
Hi, my name's Chelsea, and I'm a 2000s diet culture survivor. My first diet was when I was around 12 years old. I went on the Special K diet, and I ate 2 of the little bars a day, and then I would eat 1 bowl of cereal. And now being a mom of 3 girls, my oldest being 4, I cannot fathom a 12-year-old girl being on a diet. But it also got me thinking, what is going to be the diet of this generation? And sadly, I think the diet is just not eating.
Then in the early 2010s, a lot of us got sucked into the pro-Anna and pro-Mia Tumblr rabbit hole, which for those lucky enough not to know what that is, pro-Anna and pro-Mia stands for the promotion of anorexia and bulimia respectively. So yeah, laptops of teenage girls across the world were filled with thinspo, pictures of extremely thin strangers that we would look at every time we wanted to eat, basically.
You don't eat that?
Oh, totally.
How'd you do it?
What?
I mean, you never eat anything. I mean, your parents must notice or something.
I like you, Sid. So I'm going to show you. You have to do a lot of talking. You do that while you're cutting things up a lot. And then, question. Where's your student card?
No.
Your ID?
It's hell in there. It's horror. You have to be a certain type of person to survive.
Thankfully, around 2015, 2016, things started to change a little bit. Brunch, pale, hyper-thin bodies with visible bones and bruises were out. Love yourself, body positivity, and my body, my rules were in. Our Instagram feed started filling up with pastel graphics about self-love, acceptance, and diversity. And for a moment, the internet actually felt kind of safe. Now, you'd be super naive to think that fat phobia ever disappeared, but it did feel like it was finally being challenged a little bit more openly. We saw the rise of body positivity influencers, mostly just normal women existing in their bodies, but yeah, at the time it felt genuinely revolutionary. And all of this, mind you, was happening alongside a broader cultural moment, activism, feminism, LGBTQ+ visibility, so it felt like a kind of collective awakening, right? Back then also the Kardashian baddie aesthetic was everywhere. Anymore, is it? For Meghan Trainor and for a lot of celebrities who were dominating culture during that time. Because the 2020s brought yet another shift. The rise of the clean girl aesthetic, the growing influence of K-pop beauty standards in the West, the return of Y2K fashion, even a broader cultural shift towards conservatism. You could kind of feel something slowly changing. The Kardashians saw it too, so they removed their implants and got visibly smaller, and here we are again. Yay. And we feel this trend, this urge to size down both on and offline, on smaller and bigger scales. Yes, it is the bones and the clavicles on the red carpet, but it is also our everyday life. In many places across the world, we've already had a taste of spring, and with it comes that familiar reminder the warmer months are coming, less clothing, more visibility, and suddenly the pressure of the perfect summer body and the body dysmorphia are in full swing. And I don't know if it's just me, but I've also been seeing so many influencers I followed for years shrink to half, sometimes a third of their size. And again, no shade to any specific individual, I'm just pointing out the broader trend. Just recently, I saw this picture go absolutely viral from a relatively small Instagram account. It had no crazy editing, no hook, no text, none of the usual things you need to go viral on the gram. Just a simple picture of a very thin girl and a man grabbing her by the waist. That's it. And it blew up with crazy amount of likes, saves and resends, as though there's something incredibly revolutionary and aspirational about it. And to me, honestly, it feels like a pretty clear indicator of where we are right now. Okay, we've traced how we ended up back here, but the bigger question is, why now? Because in case you haven't noticed, the resurgence of ultra-thin bodies in pop culture isn't happening in a vacuum. It is happening at the same time as rising food insecurity, inflation, and a general sense of economic and political instability. And historically, when a society is under pressure like this, aesthetic trends tend to shift in ways that normalize scarcity. Think about it, we're constantly being told to cut back, to budget better, to do more with less, and at the exact same time, the most visible, most influential bodies in culture are getting smaller again. Coincidence? Well, I don't think so. Because what does a very thin body signal culturally? It signals restraint, low consumption, taking up less space, being controlled and efficient. To understand this phenomenon better, we need to turn to French philosopher Michel Foucault. You've probably heard his name before. He's the one behind the whole panopticon thing that shows up in pretty much every video, say, under the sun. But today we're not doing that. We're talking about his idea of biopower. Biopower, which Foucault developed in his 1976 book, The History of Sexuality, Volume 1, is about ways modern societies govern life itself. It isn't about laws or force, it's about shaping how people live, how they behave, and how populations are managed. Foucault described biopower as working in two main ways. One focuses on individual bodies, training them to be disciplined, efficient, and self-regulating, and the other focuses on entire populations, managing things like health, birth rates, mortality, and life expectancy. According to Foucault, modern power doesn't just tell people what to do, it creates the conditions where people start regulating themselves while quietly shaping society as a whole. We know that historically, power often centered on death, so the sovereign's right to punish or kill, right? But biopower flips this logic entirely. It is actually focused on life, maximizing health, productivity, and obedience, while normalizing behaviors that benefit the system. Public health campaigns, diet culture, fitness norms, these are all the ways populations are shaped and optimized under this framework. So biopower is how modern states and societies govern us, not just politically, but biologically. So how does this connect to ultra-thin bodies, you may ask? Well, in a world of scarcity and economic pressure, the ideal body becomes a mirror of the values society wants to instill in us. Logically, in a time of scarcity, the most valued body is the one that needs the least. Thinness signals self-control, restraint, minimal consumption, and efficiency, exactly the qualities being demanded of citizens right now. So the body becomes a site where societal expectations and economic pressures intersect, like no one is explicitly ordering anyone to be thin, but the logic of scarcity, discipline, and efficiency seeps into how we see ourselves and which bodies we consider valuable. And it is no surprise that this lands so heavily on women. I mean, women's bodies have long long been one of the primary sites where social control is exercised. From a young age, women are taught to occupy less space, to be contained, to appear controlled. We as women are monitored socially, culturally, and medically in ways that men are just not. So when society begins to reward restraint, efficiency, and self-regulation, women's bodies are where that pressure shows up first and is expressed most visibly and most intensely. Beauty standards, fashion, fitness, culture, marketing, all of these become tools of biopower, turning women's bodies into markers of discipline, obedience, and societal success. And surprise, surprise, a huge part of how we perceive thinness and fatness is historically impacted by racism. The ideal of thinness has long been tied to whiteness, with the slender, self-controlled body positioned as the model of virtue and obedience. In Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia, Professor Sabrina Strings traces how ideas about fatness and morality became deeply racialized. During the transatlantic slave trade, colonists associated heaviness with Africans, framing it as evidence of a supposed lack of self-discipline, an idea that was then used to justify claims of moral and intellectual inferiority. At the same time, these narratives worked in the opposite direction for white women, teaching them how to present themselves in public as delicate, self-sacrificing, and restrained. So thinness became a marker of virtue, while other bodies were cast as indulgent, excessive, or out of control. In other words, thinness never was just about appearance. It became a way of policing not only bodies, but the boundaries of who could belong, who could be seen as proper, and who was considered capable of self-governance. And isn't it just fascinating how the current period of thin supremacy so neatly coincides with surges in racism, white supremacy, and anti-immigration policies? Once again, the ideal body doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It reflects broader anxieties about who is allowed power, authority, and visibility in society. That is why the current return of extreme thinness isn't just about aesthetics or personal choice, as some people like to tell us. It's a reflection of the economic and political moment. Scarcity, efficiency, and control are rewarded, and women's bodies are the most immediate, visible place to display that compliance.
What's this? It's a prescription for Lizzo? Rich people get Ozempic, poor people get body positivity.
If Foucault explains the system, ozempic and other GLP-1 drugs explain the speed and scale of it. Previously, extreme thinness demanded obvious efforts, starving yourself, over-exercising, calling cigarettes lunch. Now, with GLP-1 drugs like ozempic, weight loss can happen rapidly, almost magically. You can drop a dress size or 4 casually, effortlessly, without ever admitting that you wanted to or you even actively pursued extreme thinness. What's different and super troubling about today's reality is how fast it happens. Weight loss that once took years of discipline and quiet suffering now arrives in a month. And it is not just about speed, it's extremeness of it all, right? We are no longer talking about people looking slimmer than they did before. We're talking about celebrities suddenly looking like a Tim Burton character, looking gaunt and almost sick. And the widespread use of GLP-1 drugs in the entertainment industry isn't exactly a secret. Allegedly, even already thin celebrities are microdosing, taking smaller than the FDA-approved therapeutic doses just to stay ahead. Microdosing is cheaper, easier on the body, and still lets you eat. So on the surface, it seems minor and harmless, but collectively, it shifts the visual benchmark of what thin even looks like. There's a stigma now to having any weight, one stylist and former Vogue editor told Page 6.
I'm sure somebody else has already made this comparison, but the celebrities taking Ozempic is exactly like that is the Hunger Games, the capital people taking that drink that makes them throw up all their food so that they can eat more. Those are the same in my opinion, except slightly different execution, but generally same idea and just as scary to everyone else because everybody else is starving, Hunger Games, but they're just choosing not to eat for fun. which is crazy.
And I think there's a clear level of competitiveness here too. In industries where looks determine paychecks, visibility, and job security, it is no surprise that the bar keeps moving constantly. If another actress or singer microdoses, then why wouldn't you, right? After all, if the bar moves, you risk being left behind, even if your body was already considered ideal. Yeah, essentially, the goalposts keep shifting constantly, and celebrities are sprinting to catch up. So while I understand that celebrities are under extreme pressure that we might never begin to understand, when they attribute a visibly malnourished body to Pilates and yoga and intuitive eating, which is exactly as much as they'll usually disclose, they make it seem like the new extreme is nothing but a casual byproduct of good choices and sound decisions. Suddenly, your own healthy routine, balanced eating, regular exercise, maintaining energy and vitality starts to feel like failure. Why? Well, apparently because your clavicles aren't sticking out enough, no one can see your rib lines, and your body isn't screaming self-control to the world. And the thing is, I don't want to sit here and demonize GLP-1 drugs. I don't think that they, like any drugs, frankly, are inherently evil. After all, they're just tools, but the way they're being leveraged, accelerating thinness, redefining beauty standards in months instead of years, undeniably creates a vicious cycle. As results normalize extreme bodies, making deprivation look casual, and reinforcing the idea that visible control over the body isn't just aesthetic, it's a moral and cultural requirement. Okay, to wrap this discussion up, I want to touch on one thing I haven't really dug into yet. Today's return of size zero glamour from high fashion runways to the red carpet risks training us to see deprivation as beauty, even while real people and real children go hungry in places like Gaza, the West Bank, and Sudan. The visual cues we scroll past on our screens, whether a war zone clip or a celebrity photo, are pretty much the same: protruding bones, fragility, absence, but context changes everything. In one setting, it's tragedy, in another, it is admired and celebrated. Starving children circulate widely online, while elsewhere, people praise fragile and glowing and ethereal celebrity bodies. And seeing both constantly starts to blur our emotional responses. When thinness is aestheticized, we start to accept the starved body as normal, even beautiful, without thinking about what it actually represents. If a starved body stops shocking us on the runway, it becomes easier for a starved body in Gaza to stop shocking us in the news. And I'm not saying this is deliberate, don't want to put on my tinfoil hat or anything like that, but when thinness starts to feel normal, even aspirational, the reality of famine and deprivation starts to feel distant and muted, bearable and manageable. Yeah, my goal with this video was essentially to shake us out of complacency and show how the glamorization of extreme thinness is being pushed front and center again, and most importantly, why. Because once we understand the forces behind it, economy, media, biopower, celebrity culture, it becomes easier to resist it.
In a culture where the goalposts of women's body standards are constantly being moved and the game is rigged for us to lose, why not be strong? Why not eat food? If you are spending your 20s, 30s, even 40s trying to be as skinny or small as possible, starving yourself, doing all of the things required to be tiny, you are robbing yourself of your life. And I genuinely say this with love as somebody that has gone down that rabbit hole and gotten the things that I thought would make me happy or make me feel fulfilled and realized that they did not at all, and that I had to reckon with the decisions that I made in order to get there.
There are two things I want you to always keep in mind. First, why are healthy bodies neither malnourished nor overweight, never trending? Is it because they don't sell? Because no one's making money off of us cooking raw ingredients at home and going to the gym twice a week? Is it because the industry that literally thrives on dissatisfaction and insecurities wants us constantly buying supplements, creams, plastic surgery, and beauty treatments? Second, anyone who's spent any time with severely ill patients, anyone who's watched someone through cancer or hospice, knows how quickly any supposed glamour of extreme thinness disappears in situations like this. Trust me, the sparkle and glamour of protruding bones fades very quickly in the face of real suffering. I just hope no one ever has to face that reality, but it is still worth keeping that in mind. So as the warmer months approach, maybe we can redirect the anxiety we've been trained to feel about our bodies into something more productive. Read a book, get involved in your community, pay attention to local and global politics. Now more than ever, our attention, our energy, and our care should go somewhere that actually matters, and certainly not towards the impossible and manufactured ideal of extreme thinness. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this was a heavy topic to research for and discuss, especially as someone who once had an eating disorder, but we did it. Thank you for watching. As always, feel free to share your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe. We're on the way to 30,000 subscribers, which is crazy, honestly. So if you're here often, just hit that button and help me get there. Thanks to my elite tier patrons, Ellie and Stefan, and all the others. Your support truly does not go unnoticed. And yeah, stay safe, you guys. I will see you in my next one.